preparing an easy fianchetto for the bishop, aiming for indirect pressure on the queen's side. Opening the center immediately combats white's fianchetto and seizes space. Developing a knight here supports a central pawn advance and prepares kingside castling. Solidifying central presence, this pawn push boldly contests white's initial spatial ambitions. Establishing the fianchettoed bishop eyes the long diagonal, influencing the center and potentially pressuring d5. Developing the knight now challenges white's center control and prepares for central pawn expansion, creating dynamic play. Fortifying the pawn chain now opens up possibilities for knight development to e4 or f4, bolstering central control. Solidifying the center's grip, this advance claims crucial space and prepares further pawn thrusts. Securing the king is paramount, freeing up pieces like the bishop and knight for more aggressive operations. The bishop now directly eyes the king side, potentially setting up an early pawn storm or offering crucial defensive support. Initiating a central pawn break promises dynamic play, potentially opening lines towards black's castled king. Solidifying the pawn chain, black locks down central space, but potentially concedes the initiative. Fortifying the knight on a central outpost prevents immediate knight incursions while preparing for further pawn advances. Repositioning the knight to e7 aims to shore up the kingside defenses and potentially support a future nf thrust, reinforcing black's central grip. Tightening the central grip, white aims to restrict black's pieces and prepare for a kingside pawn storm. Solidifying the central pawn chain, f6 shores up the d4 pawn's defenses but slightly cramps black's kingside. Aggressively pushing the knight forward creates immediate kingside pressure, though it risks leaving the center a bit loose. Fortifying the center and preparing to challenge white's imposing pawn structure is a sensible redirection of black's pieces. Unleashing the kingside pawns now aims to create immediate diagonal threats against black's uncastled king. Releasing central tension now offers black better piece mobility. Opening the g-file for your rook creates immediate attacking potential, but be mindful of your weakened kingside. Asserting queenside influence while preparing to develop the bishop to a more active diagonal. Opening the e-file risks your king's safety for immediate aggression. Conceding central space to open the f-file opens up new avenues for both sides, demanding immediate tactical vigilance. Opening the f-file aggressively challenges black's pawn structure and aims to exploit weaknesses around the king. Prioritizing king's safety, this retreat allows black to regroup pieces and challenge the looming e5 pawn, aiming for a more balanced pawn structure. Unlocking the h4 f5 diagonal, this knight jump prepares to disrupt black's central control and potentially expose the king. Securing the king's retreat creates an immediate attacking potential on the queen side, while simultaneously solidifying black's pawn structure. Unleashing the queen, this maneuver aggressively targets the king side and aims to exploit the d4 pawn's isolation. Anchoring the king on b8 secures it from the open diagonal, though it's a touch passive given the central pawn structure. This sacrifice unpins the bishop and opens a dangerous diagonal, but beware of counterplay against your exposed king. Boldly challenging the central pawn structure, this bishop maneuvers to support the isolated king and prepares to contest the open h-file. Opening the f-file for the rook is a prudent step to participate in the ensuing skirmish around your king. Probing the king's defenses by creating a potential pawn storm on the king side, while potentially neglecting development and creating a backward pawn on h6. Fortifying the pawn chain, the bishop now eyes the queen side and prepares for potential pawn advances. Pressing the king side assault, black aims to create counterplay by activating the rook along the g-file, challenging white's central pawn structure and potentially opening lines for his own attack. This bold queen sortie aims to exploit the exposed black king, creating immediate tactical threats. A subtle repositioning of the knight to potentially contest the central tension and prepare for defensive maneuvers. Challenging the established pawn chain with this knight thrust, aiming to disrupt black's defensive structure and exploit the semi-open f-file. Opening that h-file could expose your monarch to fierce assault. Seizing the open file, white aims to exploit black's exposed monarch. Reclaiming the bishop frees up the knight, but the queen side remains a positional headache. Unleashing the queen to provoke a desperate pawn defense, aiming to crack open the black king's sanctuary. Reclaiming the d-file for future skirmishes, while repositioning the knight for defensive support. Reclaiming the open f-file, this queen repositioning prepares to pressure black's uncastled monarch. That bishop retreat sacrifices immediate initiative for a more robust defensive posture against white's advancing pawn storm, prioritizing king's safety. Challenging the pinned knight and aiming to exploit the open f-file provides crucial counterplay. Repositioning the knight to a less exposed square, aiming to support the queen side and contest the central files. Prying open the king side further, this move aims to exploit the exposed black monarch and create new attacking lines. Reclaiming the knight, black seeks to dissolve the problematic pawn structure and activate their pieces. The knight makes a bold sortie, aiming to disrupt black's pawn structure and pressure the weakened dark squares. Sacrificing the bishop opens up white's king, creating potential for counterplay down the newly cleared files. Reclaiming the open file reopens avenues for the rook, creating imbalances for the endgame ahead. Navigating a tricky knight fork, this retreat seeks to consolidate after tactical fireworks. Unblocking the queen's diagonal aims to activate the rook and improve its attacking potential on the king side. Unleashing a knight to f4 creates a powerful outpost, aiming to disrupt white's central pawn structure and generate counterplay. Unleashing the rook's power, this move seeks to dismantle black's pawn shield and open attacking lines toward the exposed king. This capture cracks open the king side, inviting immediate counterplay and a race for initiative. Capturing the knight opens the bishop and creates an immediate threat to the black king's safety.